Good morning. My name is Beth Stevens. I'm with Soapbox Influence, and I'm delighted to be introducing your speaker this morning. Monique B. Jones is a powerhouse. Our team had the opportunity to spend some time with her last night, and you guys are definitely in for a treat. Monique is an Arkansas native, and she's got the red shoes to prove it. She's a Razorback, so she's among friends today, despite the fact that she did spend some time at UT Austin as a Longhorn, but we'll forgive her. Monique is really a neat individual. She serves as the president and CEO of the Evanston Community Foundation, which is amazing. So she's right outside Chicago. I heard some Chicago pride in there. A really neat organization. She's been there about 3 years. It's a 30-year-old organization where she is responsible for stewarding $25 million. I went back and forth. I was going to give you $55 million, but I think it's 25. So. Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's soon to come, right? Yeah. So Monique is really neat. She's going to be speaking on a topic of personal passion today around creating the intentional legacy. And she has a particular passion for having hard conversations. She spoke with our team quite a bit last night about leadership and hard conversations and legacy, and it's just going to be an incredible amount of time that you spend with her today. In her spare time, because she has all this spare time, she has a husband, a 7-year-old daughter, and she also is an instructor at Northwestern, like one does, and then she just launched a podcast, so she's just got time to spare and is creating a lot of incredible things in the hours between, I think, about 8 and midnight, right? So you all please join me in welcoming Monique B. Jones.
I do have lots of time to spare. That's why I'm here with you guys. Wow, you make the girl feel good. Thank you. For 24 hours a day, yes. I am the president and CEO of the Evanston Community Foundation, and also for 24 hours a day, I do all that other stuff. So Beth mentioned between 8 and midnight because I'm good. My 7-year-old daughter, she goes to bed at 8 o'clock. You can accomplish a world of things with a quiet house, right? So yes, Monique B. Jones, B stands for Brunson. I just couldn't let it go when I got married. How many of you are with me? You just can't let that name go. And for whatever reason, my mother did not give us middle names. So that became my middle name. I'm going to share with you a couple of things today. One is, yes, I do have all those things that Beth said, but in order for me to have all those things that Beth said, I kind of had to brand myself to be able to do all those things and still be true to who I am, which is a lot, 24 hours a day, and then even when you sleep and your mind goes in different places, it's a lot. But working in a space which I do on a daily basis, which is nonprofit space, and then I collaborate with the business community, you kind of have to stay set in who you are and doing all those things. So that is me. My daughter is Brielle. If you are connected, if you like social media, I think I learned to love it this year. On Instagram, I'm Monique B_Jones. I think yesterday was posted a video of my daughter. She loves the camera. So that's how it is. So what I'm going to cover today is really developing your personal leadership brand. But there's a way to do it, and it's not hard by any means. When you get through this, hopefully it'll be really, really, really easy for you, and hopefully our technology will love us today as well. So your personal leadership brand is essentially who you are. There are people that walk this earth that you know who they are and what they mean the moment you see them. You have no questions about it. Like, non-stop, powerful people. You know that they're not going to take any stuff. You know that their values are really, really good for them. And these are just a few of some of my favorites right now. And I'll start with Frida. I am culturally incompetent in so many areas, and that was one of them. I did not know who Frida was. Had no clue. Walked into an airport in Puerto Vallarta, and there was a gift store, all Frida stuff. So I quickly Googled the way you do in the middle of a store when you don't know what stuff is. And I actually quickly called one of my colleagues because I had seen a picture of Frida on her desk at work. And I walked out of that store spending the rest of the pesos that I had on Frida. So self-portrait, great artist. I didn't understand why I was seeing so many versions of her, and now I understand more, so I know who she is. So without a doubt, you know who Frida is when you see her. Okay, Ruth. Notorious RPG. If you have not seen that movie, you must see it. In her late ages, Ruth is still causing trouble, and Justice Ginsburg gets up every day and she goes to work out in a gym that she created. So she's a powerhouse. She will always be a powerhouse. I'm so excited to have her. So you know who she is. Serena, I mean, really. It's just as of late. I really did this before the incident that happened, and so I thought, oh, this is awesome. But there's a video actually of her, if you Google videos with her and her father, a video of her being interviewed, and she was so sure of herself at an early age. She's like, I know I'm gonna win. And the interviewer kept forgetting the interviewer. He kept questions like, how do you know? How do you know? And father just stopped. Look, she answered your question. She told you that she was gonna win. She's so sure of that. Don't squash that. So now you know who Serena is. Even if she doesn't win, she thinks she's gonna win. And that's kind of the way that she goes. So your branding of yourself and how you naturally are is really essential to your full self. And it kind of leads your lifestyle. So what does it mean? And I'm sorry that this is a little wiggly, but we'll get it. Your leadership brand is about values and assuring that you have a set of values that lead you in a way, including every position that you're in and every environment. When you know what your values are, they actually help you engage with the world around you in a way that tells people what you're about, what you're going to stand for, and what you're not going to stand for. So it's just, I won't say it's an aura, it could be, but it's definitely a definition of who you are, and it's definitely you using those to judge how you engage with people in situations that you either love or you don't. I will tell you the quick story about me developing my brand leadership, and it came with an executive coach. Most of us may not have access to an executive coach, especially paid for by somebody else. So, but I sat down with who is, I should say, the former executive director of IKEA. And her name is Penelope Spears Lopez. You can follow her on Instagram as well. She has a great book called Design Your Life. And what she told me happened to her in her early 40s, actually maybe before she was 40, she had a heart attack. And it was at that point in her life where she had to decide what mattered most to her. So she took me through a process of identifying spaces in my life that I knew mattered and holding those values true. So I went through a year with her, going through a full timeline of stuff that had pissed me off, things that had made me happy, and real sincere changes in my life that I had to make based on situations, and that's how I define my leadership. Now, if you don't have access to an executive coach or a mentor in that way, what I also did was just took some mental health days at work, sick days as they're called. I don't know many companies that actually label mental health days, but sometimes a sick day calls for you to call out like 24 hours in advance. Who knows they're gonna be sick 24 hours in advance? I don't know. However, if you have the luxury of taking those and you're a healthy person, take them anyway and use that time to think about who you are and what you're gonna do. So I helped develop my own personal leadership brand by going through that process with her. And this is one of the things that she told me. I don't know who Bill Bernanke is, but this quote literally was in the framework for the presentation that I pulled for this class, for this workshop, and I left it there. Because the most powerful element in advertising is in truth. How many marketing executives or marketing people do we have today? Yeah. How many of you struggle with getting your clients to tell the truth? Because telling the truth about who you are attracts the people that you want. So let's substitute this a little bit. The most powerful you is in advertising your values. You have to be a walking value statement because that's the most powerful thing about who you are. Sometimes it's very unique depending on the situation. Sometimes it helps you decide which side of the aisle you're going to stand on. But that is the most powerful thing that you can offer to the world around you and yourself. When you develop your values, they don't always show up as clear. And sometimes as women, we are in situations where we have to decide, are we gonna stand on a value that maybe the room around us disagrees with, or are we gonna hold back a little bit? And I'm sure I'll hold back. It depends, I need to judge the room. Anybody need to judge the room, right? So sometimes it's always good to just be quiet and see what everybody else is thinking or saying. And then I stump myself on the foot when someone else takes the comment that I was gonna make because I held on to it too long. Yeah. that I was like, Todd, I was thinking about that. I should have said it first. But that's all a process. So don't think you have to define your values, tattoo them on your arm, and then walk out of here and say, oh, these are my values, I'm always gonna do this. It depends. It depends on your situation. It depends on if you're, who you're dealing with. Some of your values will show up different depending on your population. Little children don't necessarily need to know all of your values. So if you're at the playground, let's not work on that right now. It's different, but sometimes it's unclear, and I want you to know it's okay. I think from the point that I landed on 5 values, most of them are still clear today. I didn't immediately go back to work and say, look, things have to change around here. These 5 things have to happen, or else I'm not gonna work here. Well, I couldn't afford to quit my job, so would never do that. And I didn't want to get fired. So those 5 values kind of stayed inside of me for a while and helped me figure out what to do. Oh, but then they come clear. And they come clear from you listening to yourself, listening to how you feel. I'm a person that when I get angry, I cry. And when I get nervous, I sweat so bad. And it's like the oddest place, like under your nose, back of your neck. Who has sweat glands back there? But there are things that your body tells you, appetite, just being able to take a moment and listen to your body when these values become clear, depending on your situation, is really, really intense, but it's so helpful. And in those spaces, you kind of get to record yourself and how you're engaging. So that's pretty dark, you can't see it, I apologize. But when they do become clear, they look sort of like this. So I love word clouds. These are some of the values that I went over with a team, one of the teams that I was working with, and it was all outward facing. It was, what do you think about the community? What do you think about leadership? Are you dedicated to it? And so we just entered a lot of words and figured out what came up the most. And within my team, community stood out as a value for them and how they wanted to engage with some of our business partners. So I run a nonprofit. My team is about 12 people. We give $1.5 million out a year to place-based Evanston community, which is 75,000 people, about 8 square miles. We work in conjunction with Northwestern University a lot, as well as the city of Evanston, as well as with the city. But the one thing that the entire community has to focus on is the people who are not making decisions at their tables. So it's hard to make decisions for people with no voice. So my team decided we needed to engage in a different way, and I decided I needed to help them engage in a different way with the people around them. So sometimes just because one thing glares out really big, don't forget the small things that you have to deal with a little bit. So the circumstances that help you decide are really good. Lots of values. I took 5 minutes literally and bulleted all these values down. Came out of my head. Does not mean you have to pick from this list of values. But by definition, of course, your person's principles or standards or behaviors, it's what you use to judge what's important in life to you. There are several on here that I wouldn't have thought about years ago when I just knew I had to be the CEO of an organization. That's balance. But before I decided to take the job, my daughter was four at the time, 5 almost, and mommy had been gone a lot. And then to have a lifestyle where my husband doesn't have to get up and travel and go, and he's a very creative, innovative man, so he took on the brunt of caretaker. So my daughter always saw me on the go. So actually in my interview, I told the search committee, I have a daughter. that means that my lifestyle has to reflect that of a parent. And I have to bring that to the community foundation. And I happen to be the next to youngest person in my office, the only one with a child not in high school. Hard thing. People in my office show up at 7:30 a.m. You will never see me at 7:30 a.m. unless I have a head wrap on and pajamas. And people in my office sometimes want to stay until 7:30 p.m. And that is because their children are grown, their husbands are off and doing something, or their spouse is off and doing something, and they can do that. I, on the other hand, have a daughter who, for whatever reason on earth, their school doesn't open until 8:50 in the morning, and she gets out at 4, or she stays for an after-school activities till 5:15. And my husband and I have dedicated to being there to picking her up and not having any more childcare after that, because it's quite expensive. But I led in that office with that, and I said, balance is one thing, but for me was blending. My value is blending that so that my daughter knows what I do, and so now I have to lead with that in my office and with any place that I volunteer my time. So while I'll be teaching this course this quarter, my daughter may show up in one of those classrooms because it's CPS, it's Chicago Public Schools, and sometimes they just take off stupid days. I understand it. It's just like the middle of the week, we're gonna take off on a Wednesday. Why not have a long weekend? So a lot of those are, so what I encourage you to do, I wouldn't say Google the word values, but you know what those values are. They don't stick on this list, but there are lots to choose from. And I took my team through an activity, and I'll share it with you to help choose your values. You know what a continuum is, of course. Continuum from the day you were born to right now where you are. I drew a line, and in that line, I drew the downs for the places where I struggled in my life, and an up loop for the places where I was very happy and felt like I was succeeding in life. So, inside story, my husband is wonderful, he's awesome, but he's my second husband. My first husband was not, so he was not my husband. But that space of going through a divorce as a young woman was obviously a downward spiral, but there were some important things that I learned about myself in that space. One, honesty. You have to have honesty in my life, no matter who you are. You don't have to be my husband, but you have to be honest to me. And so if you take a continuum from the beginning of your life to where you are now and draw that line of spaces where you struggled and spaces where you were excited, what things were most important to you during those times? Obvious things were most important. When you got your new job, what was it about it that attracted you to that space and those people? That's important to you. You lost a family member or a parent, and those spaces were sad, of course, but were there memories in there that were important to you? Were there ways that your family worked through it, or maybe still working through it, that you value? That took me a long time, took me a couple of weeks to complete that because I kept leaving stuff off. I kept, for whatever reason, your mind blocks out some of the harsh things that happen to you because you come through them really resilient. But try not to leave those things off. So you'll not make it a little long, even though you're only 30. Not make it a little long. But try to work on that and keep that with you. I don't keep it like on a board anywhere, but it did help me define some of my values. So there are so many spaces. The other thing that's really important is to think about every place where you show up. Now, if I trip, I'm bad. From work to your faith-based place, to the farmer's market, to the playground, to any place where you volunteer, it's important for you to think about how you engage in all those places because it won't look the same, and it should be. If you're a hard ass at work, don't be a hard ass at church, guys. Let's give a little grace. Let's give a little grace. Bible study's not the same as, meeting deadlines for your board. Let's practice that a little bit, but you have to realize actually how you feel in all those places because it does matter to you. And it's stressful. Women, we have to, of course, take care of ourselves, and so sometimes we just overlook that. And as Pernilla had her heart attack, not knowing that she was having a heart attack, trying to sell IKEA furniture door to door, it took a toll on her. And sometimes we don't recognize what's taking a toll on us until it's too late. So there are lots of health vendors out here today. So I think we can get a chiropractor check out over there. Let's go get that done. Cholesterol check maybe. So I'm going to do some, you don't have to write anything yet. I know you have cards, but that's not what this is for. If you have a notebook, which I see most of you having, I'm gonna help you try to figure out some values. And think about, I won't ask you to close your eyes, but think about the last time you were angry. My mother didn't let me say mad when I was growing up. She said dogs get mad. So I had to say, I don't know what that was about. I'm mad dog. But she said that figure out what's angry. I want you to figure out what's made you angry. What was wrong with that situation that made you upset? What mattered to you when you were angry? And what value would you assign to that feeling? So my example, I told you I was divorced, so there, just use that, let's go with that. My first husband was my high school sweetheart, and we should not have ever gotten married. Just don't, there are some high school sweethearts, people don't listen to this, but for us, we didn't experience life. So the tragedy of our divorce is that we had not valued each other's individuality. We had not valued the part of growing up, being an adult, in the independence. And so what mattered to me during that was, while it was easy to let go, is because I knew it wasn't either the fault of the other. It was mutual stupidity that we did. And I valued the fact that now I need to be an individual, and so does he. So I was angry, but there's lots of values to gain in that, and that's what was wrong from the get-go in that experience. We had not experienced life apart, we should have. So I would ask you to repeat that with some other emotions. The last time you were happy, and what made that situation right? What was right about that situation that made you happy? Birthday party, your birthday party, boat party? What made you happy? What do you value about those times that make you happy? Is it the friendships? Is it the wine? A little bit of downtime? How about the last time something made you sad? And I always equate sad with a death, but no, not necessarily. Sometimes sadness is losing a friend that's still living. Sadness can be just a separation from a situation. Or sadness these days when you're watching TV, who knows? But what was it about that situation that was hurtful? What was hurtful about that, and what value would you assign to it? Let's keep going. What was a situation the last time that you were confident about something? Someone maybe gave you a compliment about something you accomplished, how you look. You met a goal that you didn't know you were going to meet. That provided a little bit of confidence for you. What was good about that situation? And what value would you assign to being confident and feeling good about yourself? I have a friend whose daughter is in her second year at the University of Arkansas. She's a cheerleader. When that baby was born, we didn't know. She was a preemie. She needed a lot of care, and we were college students. And through the years, she surrounded herself with the family that were our friends. And it was just maybe a year ago when we felt like, oh gosh, this child, we're confident that she is going to be something in life without health problems, without any residual effects of being a preemie. And it took us almost 20 years to gain that confidence that she would do wonderful things in life, despite her early beginnings when we were college students. Goodness, right? And then finally, which people don't honestly think about this all the time, but I would say 99.9% of us have been anxious in life, right? I see heads, but I don't know, right? Or can someone tell me in this room that they have not been anxious? Okay. That happens a lot, like daily. So think about times when you may have been anxious in life. And I use the word wacky because it's always a wacky feeling to me. So what was wacky about that situation? What was the imbalance about that situation that made you anxious? Ancient, Monique. So take that time. What was the value in having that feeling? Was it confusion about the space around you? Confusion about what you were doing in that space, what you should be doing? Feeling a little bit of self-consciousness about yourself? What values do you have in that situation? Those are just 5 emotions. You guys know there's so many emotions to go through, but thinking about the times when you felt a heightened level of emotion in situations and what you valued in those really helps you identify some of your things that you're working on. Does anybody want to, you have 4 mics up here, you don't have to get up, you can yell them out if you raise your hand. Anyone want to share a value that they just came up with? Respect. Oh yeah, that's a good one. Integrity. Mm-hmm. Patience. I struggle with that. I'm such an impatient person. What? Back?
Being heard.
Being heard.
Focus. Your voice being heard.
Your voice being heard. That's very important. Honesty. Yeah. Those are good. Humility. It's hard to be humble when you're a hog, sorry. Humility is important. On the flip side of that, people just really think you're arrogant when you're not. It's something to balance with, right? Stability. Tell me more. Okay.
Just being stable in your work-life balance and being stable for your kids.
Okay. Just standing firm in what you need to be for the people around you. Yeah, really good. I saw another hand. Teamwork, really important. You always can't, sometimes I want to do it all. Always can't do it all by yourself. And I saw another hand. Consistency. Oh, she gets upset. That's a good one. Thank you for sharing. That's really cool. I imagine that there are lists and lists of values that you're really thinking about right now. I hadn't thought about stability. I'm always thinking about balance and blending, but yeah, can't be everything to everybody. So these are my 5. I mean, not the people. It's me. But so I listed all these scenarios that will help you figure out what your values are. And although I didn't define those 5 values until 5 years ago, my lifetime created those values for me. So I was probably 4 in this picture, biggest forehead on earth, but my mommy, Marie, raised my brothers and I after divorcing my dad when I was 4. So I was born in Chicago. She moved us back home to Arkansas to raise us because she sort of kind of knew that raising 3 African-American boys in Chicago was not a good idea. And I thank her for that every day as I watch the tragedy in Chicago and the gun violence on the west side of Chicago, which is where I live, that my brothers are still living. But her strength running that household, which was so crazy, gave me the humor that I have every day. I talk to each of my brothers every day, and they're stupid. And there's no other word. There's literally no other word. For instance, my youngest brother, Derek, lives in South Carolina. He runs a trucking business, and with all the hurricanes happening in North Carolina, I do the sisterly call, hey, what are you doing? What's going on? He said, well, I'm not there. Where are you? I'm in Atlanta. Well, where is everyone else? I don't know. It's a whole family, dude. It's a whole family of people. And you don't know where they are. Well, they're grown. They went anywhere. I said, I need you to call. Can you call your daughter? Can you call your ex-wife? Can you tell me where my nieces and nephews are? because he's stupid and he didn't keep up with it. So I then, instead of calling one person, I have to call 5 because you up and left them, but everybody's safe. But you just, I have, that's what I grew up in. Like, I would ask questions and I'd get the most insane answers from my brothers. And I'd go to my mom and she'd say, you know, you guys are all individuals. Okay. So I had to have a boatload of humor in my household because nobody was ever serious. They taught me optimism. So you need to be able, and I truly believe this in my soul, be able to look beyond whatever's right in front of you and have a positive perspective on that. And I'm so certain that in our next presidency, I will be able to do better with this. But you just have to be able to do that, and I have to work in an environment where people can do that as well. That sort of means a lot of creativity. Someone in the room said integrity earlier, and that's important. I learned that in my first marriage. That's important. Fidelity for me, and that came from my brothers, because they would say, before Michelle Obama said it, they said, your word is bond. When you committed to doing something, you have to do it. And if you tell me you're gonna do it and you don't follow through, I'm gonna hate your guts, Monique. So for my brothers, it's little stuff like, if I loan one of them money, I'm gonna need my money back in a week, maybe 4 days. So don't get any money from me if you're not gonna give it back. But either way, it's just those things. Those are family, I think those are family values that I grew up with, that I just carry with me. So I would encourage you to think beyond today. Think back to some values that you had to employ with family and friends early on, and you'll recognize that it's been you all along. This has been what you've stood in for your entire life, and there are people that helped create those things. I didn't talk about my other 2 brothers, they're special too, but they're in Little Rock, and my mother passed away in 1993, but I think she did a good job with us, so I love them anyway. So if you got those values, if you think about where you came from, and then today's situation, so everybody here chose to come to a full day of learning and encouragement and hopefully connecting with some folks that you never knew, and that you can make some connections and carry them on with you. Those situations are important. Today's situations are important for your values. So I'm not going to tell you to not meet someone new. What I'm going to tell you is to meet everybody you can, and then go back to your office or your house or your community and decide how to engage with these people that you've just met in the best way you know how. Be sincere to yourself about it, because what I do is overcommit. I don't know a friend that's in the back of the room that will overcommit to. What you'll do is to say, I'm gonna call you today. Like, no, this is over at 7. I don't want to talk to you today. Or I'm gonna call you next week. So try to avoid saying something that you can't do. Just be honest with yourself. I love it that I've met you. You sound very interesting. Your card is really creative. Your website is cool. And guess what? I will figure out how to connect with you on some day in some way. So don't make the situation more than what it needs to be, because it just maybe sets you up for a little bit of failure in the future. But situations happen all the time. You'll get them every day, and you'll have to figure out what to do with them all the time. Oh gosh, and I love these. I just had to grab these off the internet because one of them is my favorite. The one in the, not the one with the little girl, because I would have hurt her. But how many of you have children? Okay. How many of you have children that love mud puddles? You, on the other hand, are protecting them. You want to put them in a raincoat, boots up to the thighs, wrap them up. They're not going to get wet at all. And what do? They walk outside and they jump in the rain puddle. It takes a strong person to just be able to see that the way you see a situation is not how other people see your situation. Your values may not be your 4-year-old's values because she or he wants to get money. So think about that. There are situations that are not necessarily in your office. I mean, maybe it doesn't rain. Hopefully it doesn't rain in your office. Hopefully there's no elephants in your office either. But there are situations that you will have to deal with that have absolutely nothing to do with making a business decision. And it's hard. The other thing, because again, this happened while I was doing this, your values will look differently to the male species. They will come across differently. You will maybe possibly be judged differently. And I encourage you to stand with that, because different is good. As I listen to this story play out with Serena, I am 100% convinced that she would have been treated differently if she was a man. And sometimes that's our situation as well. Not all the time, but I want you to be able to recognize when it is and stand firm in it. By definition, it's always your personal leadership brand. When you wear your values, your personal leadership brand is a combination of how you see yourself and how the world around you sees you. It's just a blend. It's nothing new, nothing fancy, it's just a blend. So your last assignment is why you have the cards on your chairs. I would love for you to walk out of here with a list of things that you gotta do and gotta put into action. But reality is you're gonna learn a lot today. And you're gonna wanna go back to your office and do a whole lot today. And then in 3 months, you're gonna forget about it. So I'm gonna help you not forget about it. On your card, I would like for you to write a situation where the values that you thought about today or that you know you have need to show up. A situation where your values need to show up. And then I'd like for you to identify one person that can help you hold that value, hold you accountable to that. Because while we are all very strong women, it's always good to have someone as an accountability partner, and that doesn't have to be a formal person. That can be a girlfriend at the bar over some wine, which is usually my accountability person. That can be your journal. That's your accountability partner, your journal, your writings to yourself for the future. It could be your Bible study group. But the key is to help you think about this not as something that just needs to live with you, but something to share and be happy about sharing. It's a good conversation piece. A situation where your values need to show up, and someone or something that can help you keep true to that. Put it in the envelope, seal the envelope, because I don't need to see it. Put your address where this will actually get to you. Home, work, wherever. I promise not to add your address to any listserv of mine, because that is not my key. I will take these cards back to my executive assistant, and in about, I would say around the new year, you're gonna get it in the mail. As a reminder, when you're developing your oh so awesome New Year's resolutions. Which I hate, but I develop a long list of them every year. If you do not want to do that, I encourage you to just keep a note to yourself. At any point in time. I like to mail notes to people, and I mail them to myself, and I write handwritten notes to someone else. I would encourage you to do that as well. Handwritten notes become a little ancient these days. But if you have questions, because I see that we have 2 minutes left, I did good. If you have questions, my email address is sort of the easiest on earth, but not really. It's mbj@moniquebjones.com. It's on the board. My website is moniquebjones.com, and I don't do a lot of listservs. However, if you go to that website and enter in your email address, if there's something special coming up and I just want to do a blast, you'll know about it. With 1 minute left, right? Any questions? Really? Yes, ma'am.
Have you ever left a situation where you couldn't be happy because your values were overridden over? How did you do that? How did you get this going?
Have I ever left a situation where my values weren't being used to my benefit, and how did I do that? Yes.
Not even to your benefit, but
Anybody's benefit. I did, actually. It was a very hard decision. I was 6 months pregnant when I left the job. And I wasn't sure that was gonna work out. I felt like I took the easy route, but I felt like I had given all that I could. at a job for a Cook County Department of Public Health in Chicago, which was a very bureaucratic space. And I live in a space where I want to make decisions and I want to see how those come to fruition. And in big bureaucracies like that, you can't. So I couldn't be creative. I couldn't be honest because I would have been fired, right? And I just didn't feel like I was I had the worth that I needed to be there. And I made a decision to reach out to a friend that ran a foundation. And I left to go work for her. Even hearing that she was an awful boss, I made a decision that actually worked out really well. But at the time, I was 6 months pregnant, dude. I gotta pay bills, right? There's a baby coming that needs rent paid. And I realized actually how stressed I was. So my 7-month pregnancy, 7, 8, 9, and part of 10 was much better than 1 through 6. Yeah, it was pretty hard. I remember my husband at the time saying, "Really?" I said, "Yeah." I was like, "Really? Yeah, I gotta go. I have to go." It's hard. And I cried about that. It was pretty bad. More? Yes, ma'am. How do you go about recharging? Self-care. Self-care, if you only have 50%, you can't get 100. Those mental health days are so important. So I spend time, I happen to have 2 hours in the evening without people around me. I encourage you to put it in your calendar, put it in your schedule. If you have the luxury of having a calendar that everyone sees and you can block out a private 30 minutes or a private hour to recharge, I encourage you to do that. In my space, my assistant knows not to come to my office when my door is closed. If you have the luxury of doing those things. If you don't have the luxury, I invite you to have to practice that at home. It's taken 3 years for my husband to get onto the calendar thing, but once he did, he knows that a couple of times a year, Monique's going away by herself. Don't call me unless the house is burning down. And even then, I just need you to wait. Because then I don't want to hear that. You're interrupting. So I have learned to vacation one day by myself. Just one day. It's staycation by myself. And be comfortable with being by myself. So I think because the doors are open, we are out of time. Okay. Again, I'm welcome to talk to you. Thank you so much.